Car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis Wright and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. My hope is that at this point you're not eating, laying in bed watching the show tonight, because tonight's show is something special. Everything you ever wanted to know about termites and their infestation, possibly even in your home right now. We're going to learn a whole lot about it, so you're going to want to be involved. All the questions you've wanted answered about termites, how they work, what they do, and anything you want to know, this is the show to get them in. You could call, text, email, that information on the screen all throughout the show. Who knew whenever you started this attorney's idea, devote a whole show to termites?
Not us.
Yeah.
David, thanks for having us. We appreciate it, and we love doing this show. And this is one of those things that when we started this show, had no idea that it is an issue that faces everybody, really. I mean, you have a bond on your house, you think everything's fine. A lot of times it's not. And that's one of the reasons we brought Tom Campbell on the show with us today. And there is no better authority in the state of Alabama. If you got a case that involves termites, Tom's the guy we call. Tom's the guy you should call.
Tom, good to see you.
I'm glad to be here. I hope we can learn a lot about termites.
That is the hope. I think when you were on before, I asked you this question, but it's curious to me. How did you become the guy, the go-to guy when it comes to termites?
Well, believe it or not, when I was in law school, I clerked for a big corporate firm, and we had an awful case where there was a misapplication of termite chemicals. Okay. And there used to be a termite chemical that was extremely poisonous to humans. And it was a serious case, and we had to investigate it. And I found out through that chemical was not going to be used anymore. And the regulators told me the replacement chemicals were very expensive, didn't last long, and the companies weren't using it. Mm-hmm. And they said as a result of that, in the late 1990s, once termites have done enough damage for homeowners to run vacuum cleaners through baseboards and that sort of thing, you'll see an explosion of termite damage claims. So I figured, well, I'll work for this nice big corporate firm, make a nice salary for a few years, and then in the late 1990s, I'll represent distressed homeowners. So that's what I've made a business of doing for the last dozen or so years.
Yeah, that's working. So how big of a problem and how devastating can a little old small termite, how much damage can they do?
Well, we have a number of cases in the office right now where people are literally going to have their houses torn down. We've got a case, in Guin that we started just a couple of weeks ago. Bought a house, the report said it was fine, no history of termites or other problems in the house. 4 months later, their living room floor was literally laying on the ground. In the Deep South, it's the worst termite problem of anywhere in the country. And if your house is in the Deep South, as of course we are, it's really not a question of if, but when you're going to get termite damage. And the reason is, unfortunately, that what we found is that virtually all the companies never put out the vaccination that can prevent termites in the first place. If you've got termites, the reason for that is simple. They didn't apply the vaccination that was paid for.
Really? Josh, in your experience, as these cases come across your desk and your attention, what surprises you about the topic and kind of the whole issue of what we're discussing tonight?
I think it's ignorance to some degree, and let me say this, I'm talking about myself as much as anybody else. I use myself as an example. When my wife and I bought our little house in Homewood in 2006, it had a termite bond that came with it. We thought everything was hunky-dory, and we've renewed our bond every single year because it's they call us and they say, hey, your bond's new. I assume that when they come out and do their inspection and they renew my bond, that everything is fine. Mm-hmm. Everything's great, and I would imagine that the vast majority of Alabamians believe the same thing. But we're going to talk about this today, and Tom is the authority on it. That is not the case. As he just said, oftentimes more than not, if we've got a termite issue, it's because it wasn't applied properly. You're paying for the service. A lot of times it's not being done. I get people who call me and say, I paid for X. Right. This is what they told me they did. Why do I have this problem? Yeah. And I have to plead the exact same problem they have, and that is, well, I would think it was being done correctly too, and that's why we get Tom involved.
Yeah, just not the case. Mm-hmm. Now, Tom, you have on a nice suit tonight, but you're not afraid to get your hands dirty, I hear.
Well, I like to say we're the dirtiest lawyers in Alabama. I didn't do this when I started off, But you know what I've found is if you'll put on a crawl suit and crawl down in a crawl space, it's
and here's
nasty.
some pictures. Yeah, that's you in action.
Your opponents won't do it.
Right.
And the experts have to tell the truth, and the regulators know you're going to go down there and look over their shoulder and make sure they did a good inspection.
Yeah.
And so we typically send me or another lawyer from my office. We crawl the house. We take the pictures. We take the videos.
And yeah, there's video here. We have video too. I want you to tell us what you're doing. You're actually beneath a home.
This
here?
is disturbing.
Yeah.
The reason we're showing this video is because this wood looks solid.
It does.
It sounds solid to the most part to an untrained person when you tap on it. But I take the sharp end of this pry bar right now and pop open that 2x4 that's holding up a porch, and it is completely hollowed out by termite damage. And the point of that is that you can do an eyeball inspection yourself, or an inspector can, when he walks around your house for 5 minutes with a flashlight, tell you everything's fine. You have no idea that there's a disaster waiting inside the wood in your home. Because termites die if they're exposed to the air, so they only eat the inside of the wood. They don't eat the outside.
Right.
That's why a termite inspection has to be carefully done. You're not looking for damaged woods. You're looking for signs of damaged wood that are very, very subtle.
And another piece of video that we've got, I want you to walk us through this one as well and kind of what we're looking at here. What is this?
Well, this is an example of a house that has rigid foam board insulation on it. And this is used as the sheathing on a house. The problem with this is made out of polystyrene or styrofoam, and termites don't eat this. The only thing termites eat is wood and cellulose material, but they mine superhighways through this insulating material, and as you can see, easily go everywhere in the house. And what this example also shows is that termites don't behave the way we think they do because of 5th grade ant farm experiments.
Right.
They don't travel in a predictable pattern. Their pattern of infestation is completely random. And if you took what you're seeing in that video and you multiplied that times the side of your house, that's how random damage can be. But especially when they get in this foam insulation, they're going to mine that, bring mud up in there from the ground, which is what you saw in those valleys in that insulation, to keep their environment moist so they don't dehydrate. And they're going all over your house, which is what they did in a Meadowbrook home that we're involved with, that's going to have to be torn down.
Okay, and I think we have one other piece of video. Let's get this in and talk to us about what we're seeing here.
This is an example again. The wood looks solid on the outside. What you see at the bottom is a mud tunnel coming up from the ground, a shelter tube that termites travel through. Got in that wood that it looks solid, still looks solid.
And those are termites down there?
Those are all termites. They're tiny. They're about the size of a grain of rice. You may have 500,000 of those in a regular termite colony.
And you're picking this apart with your hand.
Right, right. That's Kieran McGowan, one of our lawyers' fingers, and I'm holding the camera and doing a very bad job of it. But he's peeling that open. In this house, you can literally hear those termites eating. I mean, literally for a decade and a half, I would have clients tell me, I could hear termites eating inside my wall. And I thought they were disturbed, or they were so emotional that they were making it up and they thought they heard termites. And I'd say, let's not talk about that at trial.
You're not helping me.
You're not helping. You know, you don't want to sound like you're crazy.
Put that on your prep list.
That's
don't
right.
say
and
that.
It's like, and I went in this house and we got in the crawl space because my law colleague says, you got to hear this. And I literally went down there, and I have a hearing problem, and I could hear those termites eating down there. And we popped that wood open, and that's what was in there. I mean, you could literally hear, a hearing impaired person like me could hear them eating the wood.
Yeah, so like Josh was saying, I'm in the same boat. So we think with the termite bond, we're good. Are we good? Are we protected?